Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 295. Greta, what's happening?
295. Yeah, the huge.
Right on.
Yeah. What's happening with you?
Dayush.
Cool.
In this episode, we will be discussing chapter 16 of the Silmarillion of Maeglin. Maeglin.
What is the right way to say it?
You know, I've never felt comfortable anyway I try to say it. I think it's Maeglin, but if you use the Silmarillion, so that's what I'm sticking with. That's the only version that makes sense, but I feel like it's subtle, like the right way to say it. So
yeah.
Anyway, before we get started, we'd like to give a double up air five to our patrons. Get them hands up there. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Whoopsh. Boom.
That was good.
Nice.
Yep, that was good.
Special thanks to this episode's executive producers, John R., Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien, Jacob Lockham, John H., and our newest patron and newest executive producer, Scotchy Bobo.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
Really appreciate your support. Appreciate the support of all of our patrons. You guys put the wind in our sails.
That's right.
So
the wind beneath our wings.
you had to go with wind beneath our
I
wings.
had
I like
to.
wind in our sails, but wind beneath. I mean,
Eagles. It's a reference to Eagles.
okay, good. As long as it's no reference to,
Yes,
like.
that's why I didn't. I can't believe you even thought that, John.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Well. Anyway, moving on. Become a patron by visiting patreon.com/TolkienRoad. Doing so gets you cool perks like 20% off of everything at truemythspress.com. Plus, your financial support helps the Tolkien Road to keep on evering on. Learn more at patreon.com/TolkienRoad. Hey, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what's on your mind in the comments below. Hey, by the way, if you are on YouTube and you really love what we're doing over here, we love it if you become a patron, but you can also just leave us a tip on whatever video you're watching, right? So there's a little button right there that says thanks with like a little heart on it, I think, right there. And you can give us a tip right there. If you just want to give us like, you're just kind of a one-off kind of tip person, you're not quite ready to make that, monthly ongoing commitment that, that patrondom entails, then you can just leave us a thanks right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we really appreciate it. All right. So our quote of the week is from the Silmarillion chapter 16. And it goes like this. It seemed to Idril a thing strange and crooked in Maeglin, as indeed the Eldar ever since have deemed it, an evil fruit of the Kinslaying, whereby the shadow of the curse of Mandos fell upon the last hope of the Noldor. Yes, prophetic words of doom.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I think we'll probably talk about it in the episode. But yeah, it seems like this curse just kind of keeps manifesting in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. So, would you call this chapter a tragedy? Would you call this chapter
Absolutely.
a tragedy?
Yeah, I would. Would you?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty tragic events. In chapter 16, we learn let's try that again. In chapter 16, we learn of the tragic tale of Aredhel, the White Lady of the Noldor, Eöl, the Dark Elf of Nan Elmoth, Maeglin, their son, and Idril, the daughter of Turgon. So, as with each episode, we won't be covering every detail of this chapter, but instead doing our best to hit the high points and unpack interesting and important details. If we miss something you guys want to discuss more, let us know. All right, timeline. So, per our volume 11 of the History of Middle-earth, War of the Jewels, the timeline for this is Year of the Sun 316 to Year of the Sun 400 for this story. So it actually, Tolkien kind of jumped around in terms of what year he put Aredhel's departure from Gondolin and what year he placed that. Originally, it was placed much, much further, along in the timeline. But he moved it back, and that was where he kept it. And so Aredhel's leaving of Gondolin is in the year 316, and her return with Maeglin is in the year 400, Year of the Sun. So that gives you an idea, framework for the timeline we're talking about here. All right. So Aredhel, restless in Gondolin, the White Lady of the Noldor. She is the daughter of Fingolfin. who of course is the High King of the Noldor, and she lives in Gondolin with her brother Turgon, right, who is the king of Gondolin. But after a while, she's not so fond of it anymore, right? And I feel like this is a Noldor thing, right? They don't like being cooped up so much, it would seem. I think Galadriel is the same way. Feanor was certainly the same way. And I think maybe her not being cooped up maybe explains something about her love for the sons of Feanor that we learn about later on, right? That she feels kind of she feels drawn to them, right? To the sons of Feanor. So she basically says, tells Turgon that she would like to leave. And he's like, why do you want to leave, right? I don't want anybody to leave. And because that's dangerous. This is kind of our little hidden kingdom. We're all protected here. No one knows the way to get here. And she's basically like, well, you may be the king, but I'm your sister. So I'm gonna do what I want, right? So you can either help me or you can, I'll just leave of my own volition. So he's like, okay, well, I'll send you then. Please, I would like it if you just went to visit Fingon and Hithlum, right? And so let's look at a map here just to refresh ourselves on the. There we go. All right, so we're right here in Gondolin, right? Get the lay of the land, and Hithlum, of course, is right here. And Fingon is the king of this realm. And so, in order to leave, they have to go west right here, and doesn't seem like too long a trip to go from Gondolin to Hithlum there. And that's the plan, right? She's going to be escorted to Hithlum and to dwell there with Fingon, their brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
That seems fair. That seems like a good compromise.
It would maybe seem so, but
yeah.
Aredhel has no intention of sticking to that plan, and that's the problem here.
Right. She's a tricksy one.
Yes. And I mean, I can understand why she wants to get away, and I can understand that she's like, look, I know you want to protect me and everything, but I'm a Noldor, right? Mm-hmm. I can handle this. And, she proves to be pretty tough, I would say. We're going to learn she makes her way through a lot of perilous realms basically by herself, right? Do
you think Turgon's concern, was it more for her safety, or was it more that he was afraid that Gondolin would become found out?
I'm sure it's both, right? I mean, probably the higher priority is that Gondolin is not found out. But right. Anyway, and you got to think about it, right? Before, we accuse old Turgon of being being overly controlling and everything like that. Again, remember, he was inspired, to create this city by a dream from Ulmo, right? Mm-hmm. It's directly inspired. And if you look at the map, they're really not very far away from Morgoth in his realm.
That is
right?
true. Yeah.
So, I know this is a time of relative peace, but it wouldn't be too surprising if there was a little special ops band of orcs that came down here, just kind of hung out here hoping to hearing rumors of this realm, this hidden realm, and hoping to find the entrance to it, right? What if they captured her, right? Mm-hmm. So, this is not, way down south, and there's really no fear, nothing to fear down here.
Right.
This is a strategic concern of Turgon's, right? Okay. This is his concern as the king of the whole realm.
Sure.
So, she has no intention of really going to Hithlum, but she goes there. She's escorted, and then they get out, and she's basically like, okay, now we're going to turn south, and we're going to go and journey to Himlad, right? Which is the realm of the sons of Feanor, right? I want to go see they're my friends. I would like to go see them. It would seem that they want to have passage through Doriath, right? Because that's a little bit safer. It's the realm of Thingol and Melion, but Doriath doesn't want to let them pass, right? They're not friendly with the Noldor, right? So they're basically told look, if you want to go see the sons of Feanor, you either have to go to the north or you have to journey all the way to the south. That looks like a very long journey for them to go all the way to the south. So Aredhel is like, well, we're going to go the northern route. Of course, this is bordering on the lands of Eöl, and that is not a friendly place. And non-Dungortheb isn't either. So this is a perilous thing. And when they enter into the land of non-Dungortheb, Aredhel basically, like the men, Turgon's men who are keeping watch over her and escorting her, basically lose track of her. And she has to make the rest of the journey herself. And these men, after looking for her for some time, these guards, after looking for her for some time, they return to Gondolin, and, she's feared lost at that point.
Yeah, and that was of no really fault of anybody's. I mean, it's just, right? I mean, it was not that she tried to lose them or they just left her be. It was just a perilous road, and they became separated, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and again, she wasn't really open to them saying, we were told not to go here, right? She's like, I'm going to go where I want to go, and if you guys want to follow along, you can, right?
She's got an adventurer's heart.
Yeah, well, and apparently very strong-willed as well.
Absolutely. Yep. As those women of Gondolin are known to be.
Yes. Are they known? Are they known to be?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yes.
Well, at least this one is.
all one of them that we know of. All right. So yes, passing through, she does manage to pass through this perilous region of non-Dungortheb, and arrives in Himlad. Meets the people of Celegorm and Curufin there, but Celegorm and Curufin are not at home. So she abides there for a short time, and she's welcome there. But at one point, she gets restless again, and she goes riding by herself, and she journeys a little too far south and gets enmeshed in Nan Elmoth here, this forested region here. So let's read a little bit about Nan Elmoth. So Greta, please read this passage right here.
In that wood in ages past, Melion walked in the twilight of Middle Earth when the trees were young, and enchantment lay upon it still. But now the trees of Nan Elmoth were the tallest and darkest in all Beleriand, and there the sun never came, and there Eöl dwelt, who was named the Dark Elf. Of old he was of the kin of Thingol, but he was restless and ill at ease in Doriath, and when the girdle of Melion was set about the forest of region where he dwelt, he fled thence to Nan Elmoth. There he lived in deep shadow, loving the night and the twilight under the stars. He shunned the Noldor, holding them to blame for the return of Morgoth, to trouble the quiet of Beleriand. But for the dwarves he had more liking than any other of the elven folk of old. From him the dwarves learned much of what passed in the lands of the Eldar.
Yeah, so this Eöl is he's kind of a hermit, right? He prefers to be on his own. He does not like the Noldor, who unfortunately he lives very close to, and he really doesn't seem to like other elves as well that much.
So what is his? It says he's kin of Thingol. So does that mean that he's Teleri?
Well, he's Sindarin. Yeah, he's Sindarin.
He's Sindar.
Right? So and I mean that's what the Sindar are, Teleri that didn't make the final journey to Aman, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So he is Sindarin, and but he feels really. I mean, he feels most at home amongst dwarves, right? He feels most at home amongst dwarves, and we learn a little bit more that he learns much of metalwork and comes to great skill through his friendship with them, and he even creates this particular type of metal that is, it says it's so malleable that he could make it thin and supple, and yet it remained resistant to all blades and darts. And he named it Galvorn, for it was black and shining like jet, and he was clad in it wherever he went abroad.
So this is not mithril.
No, this is not mithril.
Okay, but it sounds similar.
Well, it's powerful metal, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. And one day he happens to be, in Nan Elmoth, and he sees Aredhel, Arphaniel. He sees Aredhel there, and he really thinks she's something.
Something special.
Yeah. Very fair she seemed to him, and he desired her, and he set his enchantments about her so that she could not find the ways out, but drew ever nearer to his dwelling in the depths of the wood. There were his smithy and his dim halls, and such servants as he had, silent and secret as their master. And when Aredhel, weary with wandering, came at last to his doors, he revealed himself, and he welcomed her, and led her into his house. and there she remained, for Eöl took her to wife, and it was long ere any of her kin heard of her again. Now, all of that sounds very, like very sus, right?
Yeah.
I will say that, let's include in this account, it is not said that Aredhel was wholly unwilling, nor that her life in Nan Elmoth was hateful to her for many years.
Not unwilling does not necessarily mean willing, though.
Well, and I agree, right? Not wholly unwilling. So, is what it says there.
It is not said. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it is not said that Aredhel was wholly unwilling, nor that her life in Nan Elmoth was hateful to her for many years. But so it's kind of like it's kind of like damning with faint praise. I think is the saying, right? It wasn't entirely hateful, right?
Could have been worse.
It didn't just utterly suck. It only sucked a little bit.
Only sucked a little bit.
Yeah. So, but definitely, this just right off the bat, we see that Eöl is a very, he's a very problematic figure, to put it in a somewhat wishy-washy academic way, right? This is just not right what he does to Aredhel here.
But isn't it what Melion did to Thingol?
Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Right.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't like, I mean, do you think it's completely equivalent?
Well, I don't want to get down this rabbit trail too much because I know I've shared my opinions like at length on how I feel about enchantments leading to marriage.
Do we want to revisit that argument?
I think truly the only difference here is that that Melion is not nearly as sus as Eöl, and that was the woman taking the lead, which I'm totally fine with. This seems a little more sus to me because it's basically a glorified kidnapping. Because Eöl is totally sketchy and he lives in dark woods, and I don't know. I feel like Thingol could have stood up for himself if he wanted to, but Aredhel probably didn't feel like she could have. I feel like she was taken advantage of.
But at the same time, it talks about. I mean, she was pretty tough. She was a pretty tough lady, right? I mean, she journeyed through this perilous region, which was not a small. This wasn't like a day's trip. This is a large region of Beleriand, right? This non-Dungorth. And it basically says she came through this region all by herself, right on the edge of Ered Gorgoroth. In later years, this is like where Beren is going to spend some time, and it's going to be like hell on earth for him,
Yeah.
So,
No doubt. I'm not saying she wasn't tough, but I mean, it was probably a calculated decision. I mean, what was the alternative?
Yeah.
I mean, did she want to go back through that road? Probably not.
I think where I land on all of this. All right. So you brought. I didn't even remember the whole Thingol and Melion thing, right?
I feel very strongly about this, people.
Yeah. Well, you do, and I to me, it's just like, okay, it's interesting to think about like what did Tolkien intend, because I feel like he's telling stories in a style that that go back to a certain way of thinking that's not as prevalent anymore, and it's all about this idea of like enchantment and I mean, couldn't you say that anybody who okay, just bear with me for a minute for the sake of argument, all right? Couldn't you say that anybody who sees somebody and says, like, I really want, like, I think that person is the most beautiful person I've ever seen, and I'm just smitten, like, love at first sight, and I have to be with that person, right? I have to have that person, right? Like, lots of love stories that we admire begin that way, right?
That's true.
And people do things that you might refer to as enchanting, like putting on the move, putting on the moves, all of this stuff, right? Whatever you want to, like, that's how we put it today. But it's like,
I think this is a different level, though. I mean, there's clearly some like unforeseen power at work, right?
Yeah, I guess the question is like, is she like without agency? I'm trying to read back. Does she have? Is she basically kidnapped, or like what happens here? Let's read it again. And when Aredhel, weary with wandering, came at last to his doors, he revealed himself, and he welcomed her, and he led her into his house. And there she remained, for Eöl took her to wife, and it was long ere any of her kin heard of her again.
Well, this doesn't say.
I mean,
if she had fought, is that kind of what you're thinking of? Like, did she resist in any way?
yeah, it's like,
we
well,
just don't know.
what were the enchantments? What were the enchantments that he used, and did they wear off at some point, and she was able to like make a smarter decision, or better decision? Like, I don't know. To me, maybe we're reading this text in the wrong way, because like it's not intended to be that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's is it unfair to like assign to like put that kind of reading on this in this case?
But I think as we discuss, I get it, and I think that's a fair question. As we get further into the chapter and actually like learn more of the story, I think it reveals something of Eöl's character, and I feel like he is revealed to be, he goes after, and okay, I don't want to get there before, but I'm saying, I think what we come to learn of Eöl's character makes me think that he definitely kept her there against her will. That's just my 2 cents.
He definitely shows off a high degree of possessiveness as time goes on.
Yes.
And he refuses, when later on, and I think this is probably what you may have been referring to, but later on when there's this desire to go back and visit Gondolin, he's not warm to that at all.
Right. He's not. And he's
not even happy about them going to visit the Nold, like basically leaving Nan Elmoth, right?
Right. Exactly. So I think that just shows what kind of person he is, and he's the kind of guy that wants what he wants, and he's going to take it regardless of, consent on the other's part. But,
But if they were truly, okay, let's just say like that they were, okay, like enchantment, working this enchantment means that, okay, yeah, maybe he was a little like, used his skills, right, to like kind of get her there, and then but then he just charmed her, and she like truly
there's
fell.
Nothing charming about him.
No, well, let me finish, right? Okay. We don't see either way. Like, we don't know how he was at first. Like, it doesn't basically say like, and he like, like put handcuffs on her, right, and never let her leave the house, right?
That's true.
I mean, it you can read it in a way where it sounds like I know it sounds like damning with faint praise. That's also, Tolkien could just be speaking in such, and he speaks in this kind of archaic way, and that could mean that like she actually liked him, she actually liked him at first, right? Maybe, and for a long time, right?
Yeah. That could be, but I also feel like she really didn't have another choice.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't let her leave even when she wanted to, just go on a visit. But even if she wanted to escape, like she really, if you look at where now Elmoth, whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, she really has no other options, right? I mean, unless she wants to go back through the perilous road, and which I guess she could have done, but at this point she has a kid, and I don't know.
Well, I think anyway, we talked about this particular section a lot longer than I had planned to, quite honestly. But it's a really interesting discussion now that I think about it. Like, there's, how do you read this? And I think living in a particular time that we live in, with the sensitivities that we have, the cultural sensitivities that we have, we can read this in a way that maybe it wasn't quite intended to come off that way.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily defending Eöl, because we find out that Eöl is not really, this great guy, right? I mean, he definitely is not this great guy in the grand scheme of things. But, if I try to read it in terms of how Tolkien intended it, I don't think it was intended to make him sound like he was like, basically like kidnapped her and made her a sex slave, right?
Yeah. So you're saying this is not Beauty and the Beast, because that's kind of the flavor I'm getting. But except obviously it's like Beauty and the Beast, but without the redeeming without,
I see.
Without
it's like a tragic version of Beauty and the Beast.
It's a tragic version of Beauty and the Beast.
Okay. I'm just not as up on Beauty and the Beast as other people.
Well, I mean, that's basically what happens, right? Is
Yeah.
she goes wandering in the woods, and he she wanders into his castle, and he doesn't want anybody to find him or his castle, so he holds her hostage in the castle, right? And she does come to love him. So, but still, he basically forces her to stay against her will, which I don't know. That might be extreme. I mean, I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it just made me feel bad for Aredhel, because that's not what she wanted when she left Gondolin. I can't imagine that's what she wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, so a lot of discussion on that. Let us know what you think in the comments below on this one, because I'm genuinely curious to see how other people read this passage. I'm conflicted on it, as you can tell. So anyway, all right, moving on. So through all of this, they have a child, and the child's name is Maeglin, right? So Maeglin means sharp glance. In Noldoran, actually, she names him Lomian, and that signifies child of the twilight. And then he receives this name from his father, Maeglin, which is sharp glance.
So they couldn't even agree on a name. Like,
Yeah,
he
that's
goes
true.
and changes the name that Aredhel gave him, which I think is messed up. Not an Eöl fan.
Well, it's a Noldoran name, right? It's in a forbidden tongue.
It's a forbidden
right?
tongue. Yeah, but he could have used the. Oh, I see what you're saying.
And he did not like the Noldor, right?
Right, I understand. Yes.
And it says, in her heart she gave him a name. Like she I don't think he knew that she had given him that name, right? It says.
Oh, it does
in
say
her
that
heart,
in her heart. I missed
she gave him a name in the
Okay.
forbidden tongue of the Noldor.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. So Maeglin, he grows up. It says he was tall and black-haired. His eyes were dark yet bright and keen as the eyes of the Noldor, and his skin was white. He's pretty much in face and form he resembles a Noldor, right? So that's interesting because it also gives us kind of the description of what a Noldor, physical description of what a typical Noldor might have looked like. And then we learn of he learns of Gondolin from Aredhel, from his mother, right? She tells him about this place where she came from, and he thinks it sounds wonderful, and he wants to go there, and he tells his father that he wants to go there, and Maeglin is not happy about that idea.
Nope.
You are of the house of Eöl, Maeglin, my son, he said, and not of the Golothrim. All this land is the land of the Teleri, and I will not deal, nor have my son deal with the slayers of our kin, the invaders and usurpers of our homes. In this you shall obey me, or I will set you in bonds. And Maeglin did not answer, but was cold and silent, and went abroad no more with Eöl, and Eöl mistrusted him. So yeah, Eöl is not about to, allow them to leave and go to Gondolin on this trip. But that doesn't stop Maeglin from proposing it to Aredhel anyway. And what ends up happening is they make their journey.
So they have to wait until Eöl has left.
That's right.
To go to a feast.
So it comes to happen that Eöl has left to go to a feast with the dwarves, and Aredhel and Maeglin get a 2-day head start. They tell the servants that they're going to visit with the Noldor, with the sons of Fëanor, but really they go straight back to Gondolin from there. But what does happen is Eöl gets home, finding out they're gone, and he hears they've gone to see the sons of Fëanor, and so he decides to go have a conversation with the sons of Fëanor because he's not happy about this, right? And so that leads us to this very interesting, heated dialogue between one of the sons of Fëanor and Eöl. This one of the sons of Fëanor we speak of is Curufin, who is, I'd basically say this is a conversation between two Eöls. So, I mean, wouldn't you? Come on.
That was very clever.
Yes.
Yes, I would agree.
Still, we can keep that clean rating. I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
I said Eöl.
Eöl.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So Greta, maybe we can read this back and forth since it's a dialogue.
Okay.
All right.
Just every other paragraph.
Well, it's not really. There's like narration in it too. So why don't you go and read it?
Then Curufin said to Eöl, "What errand have you, dark elf, in my lands? What An urgent matter, perhaps, that keeps one to sun-shy abroad by day?
So sunshine.
Yeah, that makes more sense. An urgent matter, perhaps, that keeps one so sun-shy abroad by day? And Eöl, knowing his peril, restrained the bitter words that arose in his mind. I have learned, Lord Curufin, he said, that my son and my wife, the White Lady of Gondolin, have ridden to visit you while I was from home, and it seemed to me fitting that I should join them on this errand. Then Curufin laughed at Eöl, and he said, they might have found their welcome here less warm than they hoped, had you accompanied them. But it is no matter, for that was not their errand. It is not 2 days since they passed over the Arasiak, and thence rode swiftly westward. It seems that you would deceive me, unless indeed you yourself have been deceived. And Eöl answered, then, Lord, perhaps you will give me leave to go and discover the truth of this matter. You have my leave, but not my love, said Curufin. The sooner you depart from my land, the better will it please me. Then Eöl mounted his horse, saying, it is good, Lord Curufin, to find a kinsman thus kindly at need. I will remember it when I return. Then Curufin looked darkly upon Eöl. Do not flaunt the title of your wife before me, he said, for those who steal the daughters of the Noldor and wed them without gift or leave do not gain kinship with their kin. I have given you leave to go. Take it and be gone. By the laws of the Eldar I may not slay you at this time, and this counsel I add. Return now to your dwelling in the darkness of Nan Elmoth, for my heart warns me that if you now pursue those who love you no more, never will you return thither.
Yeah, so not a friendly conversation between those two. We will see quite a bit more of Curufin, especially in the story of Beren and Luthien.
But Curufin agrees with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he too thinks it's messed up.
Well, I mean,
what Maeglin did.
You know, he
may
agree with you,
Eöl.
but I wouldn't be like, well, Curufin agrees with me. So I mean, obviously,
I got Curufin on my side.
Yeah, right. Curufin is not exactly the this like moral paragon, which we find out later on. So
yeah, at least he agrees with me.
Well, I think he probably agrees with you because he's going to read whatever Eöl did in the worst possible light. Now again, it's clear that at some point Aredhel is there against her will, right? And so you know, I get that, and I'm not trying to say Eöl is like this guy who's just been totally wronged and like the way he's presented. I'm just saying, like, going back to the argument real quick. All I'm saying, people, is what's the right way to read that? How did Tolkien intend for us to understand that initially? All right, that's all I'm asking. All right,
it's a fair question.
So, okay, so yeah. Basically, we keep on hearing these foreboding words that, you know, hey, you know, something bad is going to come of this if you try to follow these people that don't love you anymore. Mm-hmm. But of course, I mean, Eöl, he's going to be really mad about this because not only did they leave without asking him, but they lied to him about where they were going.
But he set himself up for that.
Well, I didn't say he didn't. I'm just saying he is going to be mad. Like,
he is going to be
there's
mad.
no way he's going back to Nan Elmoth, right? Knowing him, right? In terms of his character, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
So,
I'm just really impressed that he was able to catch them, because he basically went the wrong way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had a 2-day head start, and he still caught up with them, which is pretty crazy to me. I mean, was his horse just like really fast, or did he not stop for pee breaks, or like?
Well, there's two of them, and yeah, I mean, if you're riding fast, you know, if you've got anger and adrenaline on your side, then you know you might be riding a little faster, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So, and he probably learned that, you know, he probably knew that there was no way that if they got into Gondolin before he reached them, then there was no way he was going to find them. Right.
Yeah.
Then they were lost. So he's probably,
because he wouldn't know the road.
Right. He doesn't know the hidden. You know, I'm sure he figured out. If he didn't know before he met Aredhel, I'm sure he learned about Gondolin. You know, and like the deal with Gondolin from her.
Yeah.
I don't think she told him the hidden road or anything like that.
Right.
But anyway, but so they arrive and they're betrayed by their horses, right? Because the horses neigh very loudly, and then Eöl's horse hears those horses, and he finds them just in time to follow them without them seeing him, right? So he's able to follow them through. Then by ill fate they were betrayed, for the horses neighed loudly, and Eöl's steed heard them and sped towards them. And Eöl saw from afar that white raiment of Aredhel, and marked which way she went, seeking the secret path into the mountains. All right, so they return to Gondolin. Everyone is, of course, happy to see Aredhel after all this time, and of course, no one more so than Turgon. Mm-hmm. And he's very warm, towards Maeglin. He really he sees Maeglin and he's like, all right, well, here's a true son of the Noldor right here, right? This is a this is a pleasant surprise, mm-hmm. right?
And Turgon himself has no heir, right? Because mm-hmm. He only has a daughter, so I'm sure he saw Maeglin and was like, oh, okay.
Well, and actually, this is something we didn't mention earlier, but when Maeglin first hears about, when his mother first tells him about Gondolin, and kind of describes that situation, right? He learns like, okay, he's like, this son of the king's sister, right? And the king has no heir, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, it doesn't say directly, but it's like he's calculating, right? Mm-hmm. It talks about him. He's kind of, I could be the king of Gondolin, maybe. Mm-hmm. Okay,
not a bad deal.
Yeah. All right. So, so that's all part of mm-hmm. his desire, right, to want to come back to Gondolin. Sure. and to see it and to dwell there. And they know that once they're back, there really probably is not going to be any more leaving at that point. But Eöl does show up as well, and he's of course caught by the guards as he's coming into Gondolin, and they bring him before Turgon. And they, Turgon basically gives him the what for. And,
he's actually pretty nice to Eöl.
Well, he is. I
don't think I would have been that nice to him.
He is, but he gives him a little bit of the what for. But mm-hmm. But we'll read this passage here. And so it was done, and Eöl was brought to Turgon's hall, and stood before his high seat, proud and sullen. Though he was amazed no less than his son at all that he saw, his heart was filled the more with anger and with hate of the Noldor. But Turgon treated him with honor, and rose up and would take his hand, and he said, Welcome, kinsman, for so I hold you. Here you shall dwell at your pleasure, save only that you must here abide, and depart not from my kingdom. For it is my law that none who finds the way hither shall depart. But Eöl withdrew his hand. I acknowledge not your law, he said. No right have you or any of your kin in this land to seize realms or to set bounds, either here or there. This is the land of the Teleri, to which you bring war and all unquiet, dealing ever proudly and unjustly. I care nothing for your secrets, and I came not to spy upon you, but to claim my own, my wife and my son. Yet if in Aredhel your sister you have some claim, then let her remain. Let the bird go back to the cage, where soon she will sicken again as she sickened before. But not so, Maeglin. My son you shall not withhold from me. Come, Maeglin, son of Eöl, your father commands you. Leave the house of his enemies and the slayers of his kin, or be accursed. But Maeglin answered nothing. Then Turgon sat in his high seat, holding his staff of doom, and in a stern voice spoke, I will not debate with you, dark elf. By the swords of the Noldor alone are your sunless woods defended. Your freedom to wander there wild you owe to my kin. And but for them, long since you would have labored in thraldom in the pits of Angband. And here I am king, and whether you will it or will it not, my doom is law. This choice only is given to you, to abide here or to die here, and so also for your son. So, Eöl, he's not a team player, right? He sees things a certain way, and he's just an interesting character in that way, right? He's just this curmudgeonly kind of figure, right? He doesn't want a whole lot to do with anybody else, wants to be left alone in general. That's why he lives deep in the woods. And, he doesn't respect the Noldor. He thinks that they're there unwelcome, that they brought trouble. And he's not about to, be berated by this, and told he has to stay and be berated by this, by this king who he views as a pretender, right?
Yep.
Someone unrightful. So, what's Eöl going to do in this case? I mean, he's going to try and kill somebody, right? I mean, that's basically where he's at.
Yeah, that's
right?
his only.
I mean,
Yeah,
you might argue that he could have, he could have calculated or bided his time or something like that, which Maeglin seems to be doing. But Eöl is just, he's not wired that way. And so Eöl, it turns out he's been hiding a javelin this whole time, poison-tipped javelin. He attempts to kill Maeglin, and Aredhel throws herself in front of him and ends up being the one that's wounded and mortally wounded. So Eöl is responsible for the death of Maeglin, which is
of Aredhel.
I'm sorry, for the death of Aredhel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even though he was trying to kill Maeglin.
He was trying to kill Maeglin, and but responsible for the death of Aredhel. Now, Aredhel had basically, before she died, she'd said, look, just have mercy on him, right? We don't need to put him to death or anything like that. But then she dies, and it's like, well, there goes that, right?
All bets are off, yeah.
Yeah, all bets are off at this point. Therefore, when Eöl was brought before Turgon, he found no mercy, and they led him forth to the Caragdur, a precipice of black rock upon the north side of the hill of Gondolin, there to cast him down from the sheer walls of the city. And Maeglin stood by and said nothing. But at the last Eöl cried out, "So you forsake your father and his kin, ill-gotten son? Here shall you fail of all your hopes, and here may you yet die the same death as I." So Maeglin doesn't speak up for him, and Eöl basically curses him. Then they cast Eöl over the Caragdur, and so he ended, and to all in Gondolin it seemed just, but Idril was troubled, and from that day she mistrusted her kinsmen. And so I take it to mean she's troubled by the fact that they put him to death, right? Is that how you understood that? That she was troubled by the fact that they basically gave Eöl the death penalty?
Yeah, that's how I read it too.
I mean, that seems like seems like what it's saying right there.
I think we failed to mention earlier that Maeglin has a thing for Idril.
Yes.
And Idril is the daughter of Turgon.
That's right.
So, I mean, they're technically cousins.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Idril does not feel the same.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, that's what it. Yeah. Well, and it kind of says that that was the first half of that of our quote of the week, right?
That's right. Yes.
That it refers, what it refers to.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Eöl dies, but Maeglin, really he's kind of held in high esteem in the court of Turgon, and it says he's wise in counsel and wary, and yet hardy and valiant at need. Right. He takes part in some of the great battles that are going to happen. So he is he's quite an individual, even though he's pretty quiet like his father, right? He's kind of an elf of few words, right? But yes, he does have a thing for Idril, right? Mm-hmm. For from his first days in Gondolin, he had borne a grief ever worsening that robbed him of all joy. He loved the beauty of Idril and desired her without hope. The Eldar wedded not with kin so near, nor ever before had any desired to do so, first cousins. And however that might be, Idril loved Maeglin not at all, and knowing his thought of her, she loved him the less. For it seemed to her a strange thing and crooked in him, as indeed the Eldar ever since have deemed it, an evil fruit of the kinslaying, whereby the shadow of the curse of Mandos fell upon the last hope of the Noldor. So pretty adult themed, pretty adult themes going on here, right? We talk about the controversy over the controversy of Eöl and his enchantment of Aredhel, right, to lead off the chapter. Mm-hmm. And then we have Maeglin and his desire for basically his first cousin, right? So it's interesting to see this kind of how should we put it, right? This this thing repeating itself, right? In the life of Maeglin, that was some kind of issue of his father's as well, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. You're just like, yeah, this is not going to play out well. This is not going to end well. And that's essentially the tragedy of this figure Maeglin. And by the way, this is an interesting chapter to kind of be inserted here into the Silmarillion, because we've been jumping back and forth between chapters that are like talking about like who rules what realm and maps. And, we had several chapters where we were talking about like the Noldor leaving Valinor. And so, it's just kind of this, Silmarillion's kind of this roller coaster in this chapter. Like, well, what does this chapter have to do with anything, right? It's just kind of the story of this dark elf, and it's just this sad story about like, this, how he enchanted this, this elf lady, and, they had a child together, and then he killed her when he was trying to kill his son because he was mad that they wouldn't leave with him, right? And you're like, what does this have to do with anything? Well, it's sowing seeds for greater tragedies later is what it's doing, right? It's it's this idea that like it really is like that the Oath of Fëanor, the Curse of Mandos, like all these things are going to manifest in really more and more tragic ways as the rest of the story unfolds.
Which this seems pretty tragic to me.
Well, it is. It is. And many tears to be shed over this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's many more tears to come.
Yep.
Yeah.
Many more to come.
And the truth is that Maeglin is going to play a big part in that, right? So.
All right.
Yeah. Any final thoughts there, Greta?
Oh, that was good.
All right.
Good discussion, I think.
You got a haiku?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Are we doing rock, paper, scissors?
Yes. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Boom. You go first.
All right. Dark elf of deep woods, lady of hidden haven, child of sharp secrets.
Ooh. That's really good.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Well done. All right, here's mine. And that's why you don't marry sketchy elves that live in sunless forests. Boom.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
Spoken like the guy on Arrested Development.
If only I had a mic drop.
And that's why you listen to your father.
That's why. I'm just saying.
That's why you don't yell.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just nothing good could come of it,
Yeah.
And clearly nothing did.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm curious to know though, what to you is the distinction between Thingol Melion and because you brought it up, right? Melion.
I did, but we already discussed this.
Okay, I just kind of want to come back to the kind of your final word on it. I'm interested.
Okay. Well, first of all, Melion, not nearly as sketchy as Eöl.
Okay.
Okay.
So
she's
so
like
the sketchiness factor has to weigh into this.
There's definitely a larger sketchiness factor here.
Yes.
And the fact that the male was enchanting the female automatically makes it more not okay for me. And I mean, Melion was gorgeous and so was Thingol, so I was totally fine with that. You know, I mean, I still feel like, and Thingol could have stood up for himself, I think. That's why I just feel, and not, oh gosh, I really need to be careful about what I say here. Not that Aredhel could not have stood up for herself, but I feel like if Thingol wanted to leave, it would have been much easier for him to leave. I mean, first of all, he was in a better part. Like, he was not in the same, I guess they were in the same forest, but still, like, he's, he just would have had more of an ability to get out of that situation than Aredhel did, just given the fact that she's a woman.
Okay. All right.
That's just me.
All right.
What?
I think it's really, I was just kind of set on like, yeah, Eöl was being a bad dude. And then we brought the Thingol and Melion thing into it. And I was like,
how can we not? Because it's like, it's obviously the same thing, but reversed a little bit.
Well, no, that's all I'm saying is like when we brought that into the equation, I was like, okay, yeah, what is the difference? Wait a minute. What's going, like, how do we assess that? Right. And I was like, cause we don't look at Thingol and Melion and say like, how dare Melion, right? It's like, yeah, like Thingol was like, saw this, like, the most beautiful of like all creatures he'd probably ever seen, right? And was just completely enchanted with her, and she was enchanted with him.
Right. So maybe that's the thing. It was more consensual, I feel like, between Thingol and Melion. This gives me the air of not being consensual.
Okay.
Like there is more of a force. There's more of a...
I can see that. I can definitely see that, especially as time went on. But this is, I thought it was a really worthwhile conversation.
Oh, I completely agree. And I'm really interested to hear what our listeners think about it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, that is all for this episode. Make sure and hit us up with the correspondence. And make sure and subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes or the platform of your choice, right? Leave us that 5-star rating, folks. Please do that. You know, our ratings are kind of dipping down into the little 4.5 range, you know?
Yikes.
Like, we need some of our 5-star fans to leave us some ratings over there, everybody, right? So, too many of them people out there who, like, listen to one episode and Greta says something weird and they're like, "Rrr." Actually, they never complain about her. They always complain about me. And I understand why. I've tried to get better as time has gone on, everybody. But if you think I have, please leave a 5-star rating.
Yeah. Yeah, please do. But even I don't.
If for any reason, just for Greta's sake, because Greta's awesome. And she deserves 5 stars.
Oh, thanks. I was just going to say, I don't know. Maybe we're doing something right if we got some naysayers leaving comments. I mean,
definitely. Like one of the last ones was like complaining about like, it was some like, complaint about how we're like injecting Christianity into all this discussion.
We've heard that before.
Oh, well, I'm just like, oh, thank you. Let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
I'll make another video on that topic and you can watch it. There you go, right? Yay. All right.
Yeah. It's good to ruffle some feathers now and then, I think.
As long as you're ruffling the right feathers, I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Well, thank you to our amazing patrons, especially the following: John R.,
Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien,
Jacob Lockham,
John H.,
Scotchy Bobo,
Ms. Anonymous,
Andrew T.,
Red Hawk,
Shannon S.,
Brian O.,
Emilio P.,
Zeke F.,
James A.,
James L.,
Chris L.,
Chuck F.,
Azia V.,
Ish of the Hammer,
Teresa C.,
David of Pints with Jack,
Jonathan D.,
Eric S.,
Eric B.,
Johanna T.,
Mike M.,
Robert H.,
Paul D.,
Julia,
Werty,
Matthew W.,
Joe Bagelman,
Chris K.,
Jacob S.,
and Don J.,
as well as those celebrating their patron anniversary. Well, this is May. This is June now, and I don't have that list. But our June anniversary patrons, we'll make sure we got you next time. So, yes.
Thank you.
My bad. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And his bad. Yes.
And my bad.
That too.
All right.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We will talk at you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.